There is a new development in the increasing tension between Russia and Ukraine, and it is a shocking one. Both nations have heavily invested in advanced weapons to improve their defense system. But that's not all. It is no shock that Russia has turned to North Korea for aid, and North Korea has responded, and the most deadliest hypersonic missile has arrived in Russian, thickening the tension with its rival nation. The big question now is, can this weapon change the course of the war? How deadly is this hypersonic missile? Join us as we look into the most deadliest hypersonic missile that just arrived in Russia. In early September 2023, it was announced that Kim Jong-un planned to visit Russia, and the meeting was officially confirmed on September 10, after the leader of North Korea used his personal armored train, the same one he used during his visit to Russia back in 2019. Notably, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu had recently attended official celebrations of the 70th anniversary of Victory Day in Pyongyang about a month before the meeting. Russia, dealing with labor shortages, a lack of international support, and ammunition shortages following its invasion of Ukraine, faced various challenges, and this brought about several speculations surrounding the main reason for the meeting. Some suggested that the meeting involved discussions on Russia potentially receiving substantial aids, including weapons and ammunition from North Korean. In return, North Korea would seek Russian assistance in developing technology and providing resource aid. On September 12, Kim Jong-un traveled to Vostochny Cosmodrome on September 13, where he had a meeting with Vladimir Putin. During the meeting, Kim once again expressed his support for Russia's actions against the West and even referred to the conflict as a sacred fight. He voiced his backing for all the steps taken by the Russian government and assured that he would always stand by Russia. In response to a question about whether Russia would assist North Korea in building satellites, Putin replied stating that it was one of the reasons that he decided to visit. After over a year of invading Ukraine, Russia has worked hard to boost its military production. They've changed factories and supply lines to make more weapons, ammo, and other things for the war. However, it seems they are having trouble keeping up with the quick firing of some important weapons, like artillery shells. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu went to North Korea, and Western officials think it was probably to talk about getting weapons from Pyongyang. The specific mention of satellite assistance indicated a potential collaboration in the field of space technology. Putin's response suggested a willingness to provide support in this regard that would indicate a level of cooperation between the two nations. This visit was aimed towards strengthening the ties between the two nations and exploring avenues for collaboration in areas such as technology and geopolitics, a move that would not help to end the war that has been ongoing for too long. U.S. officials got worried about North Korea openly supporting Russia during the visit. They cautioned that if North Korea finds ways to get around sanctions while helping Russia in the Ukraine invasion, the U.S. will figure out how to reduce their effectiveness. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasized that any country working with North Korea needs to follow the sanctions set by the Security Council. On the 13th of October 2023, it became clear that the speculations concerning Kim Jong-un's visit to Russia were not false because there were satellite images that showed hundreds of boxes arriving at Russia's port from North Korea. A recent report suggested that North Korea is quietly sending a lot of weapons to Russia, using ships and trains to support Moscow in its war against Ukraine. The report, released on October 16 by the Royal United Services Institute in London, relies on excellent satellite images of ports and trains transporting weapons. The pictures showed two Russian cargo ships going back and forth between a North Korean port called Rajin and a not-so-famous Russian port called Dunai. According to RUSI, these ships carried hundreds of containers, and the Institute thinks these containers probably had North Korean weapons inside. These containers later arrived in Tikhoretsk, in Russia's Krasnodar region, which is almost 10,000 kilometers away from Primory, where the cargo ships were seen. The pictures suggest that an ammunition depot in Tikhoretsk has gotten much bigger since August. One of these cargo ships is said to have connections with the Russian Defense Ministry. Both this ship and a Russian maritime leasing company were put under sanctions by the United States in 2023. Jake Sullivan, who works for the White House and deals with national security, shared that the United States intelligence has been watching the chance of North Korea giving weapons to Russia for a while. Sullivan explained that Moscow, which is the capital of Russia, is putting a lot of effort into getting support from North Korea because the US has been putting pressure on Russia's defense industry. He said that Russia is now searching for any place it can find to get things like artillery ammunition, and that's why they are trying to get help from North Korea. Other experts have also found proof suggesting there's more train movement between North Korea and Russia after Kim's visit to Russia. The Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C., shared a report this month saying that the amount of trains going back and forth is much higher than what they've seen in the past 5 years, even before the COVID-19 pandemic. They believe that since Kim and Putin talked about military exchanges and working together in their recent meeting, this big increase in train activity probably means North Korea is sending weapons and ammunition to Russia. In addition, 2 ships have been moving back and forth between North Korea's Rajin port and a secure facility in Russia's Far East since mid-August, making at least 5 trips. While the specific cargo remains unknown, the images indicate a connection to the Russian military logistics network, strongly hinting that these ships are transporting military equipment. This analysis serves as clear evidence that after receiving support from Russia for many years, North Korea is now aiding Moscow in its war effort. This collaboration suggests a deepening military relationship between the two nations, with North Korea actively contributing to Russia's military needs. Before the important meetings between North Korea and Russia, the 2 ships didn't have any recorded history of traveling the route between North Korea's Rajin port and Russia. In the subsequent period, satellite image analysis conducted by RUSI revealed that the Russian cargo ship Angra started its journeys between Rajin, North Korea, and Dunai, Russia from mid-August. Around the same time, another Russian vessel named Maria followed a similar route. Notably, just before embarking on this path, both ships intentionally turned off their automatic identification system signals, a move detected by the ship tracking website Marine Traffic. This action allowed the ship, Maria and Angra, to conceal their locations during their journeys between ports, suggesting a deliberate effort to operate discreetly and possibly evade scrutiny or regulation. At the same time, there was a quick increase in storage areas for ammunition at a depot in Tikhoretsk near the war's front lines. The images that were analyzed show the 2 ships making several trips between Dunai and Rajin, where they load the ships up with ammunition and unload the cargo at different docks. In Dunai, the ships unload their cargo while being accompanied by a military ship. Interestingly, North Korea produces 2 types of munitions extensively used by Russia in the war: the Soviet-era 122mm Grad rockets and 122mm howitzer artillery rounds. With the ongoing war in Ukraine and the need for more ammunition, it appears that North Korea and Russia have been working together for a longer period than initially believed by the West. Additionally, other weapons likely exchanged in this collaboration include conventional weapons such as artillery platforms and rocket launchers. The BM-21 Grad is a self-moving launcher for rockets that are 122mm in size. It was made in the Soviet Union. The system was first created in the early 1960s and got used in a real fight in March 1969 during a conflict between the Soviet Union and China. The entire system, comprising the launcher and the rocket, is formally known as the M21 Field Rocket System. However, most people refer to it as the Grad Multiple Rocket Launcher System. The howitzer, on the other hand, is a big gun that shoots 155mm artillery. It is from the United Kingdom and is pulled by a vehicle. It has been used in wars like the one in Iraq the Syrian civil war, the conflict in Yemen, and the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's known for its ability to fire shells at long distances, like up to 40 kilometers. Depending on the year and the deal, the cost for one howitzer can be around $2 million to $3.7 million. Regarding the ship Maria, official documents have indicated its association with a company called JSC Sofracht. In 2019, the United States accused the Sofracht of being involved in sanctions to assist Russian forces in Syria, supporting the regime of Bashar al-Assad. North Korea isn't the first, and probably won't be the last unconventional state that Russia seeks help from in its challenging war with Ukraine. Since 2022, Moscow has heavily depended on Iranian-made explosive drones for over a year, using them in Ukrainian cities, on civilians, and the country's infrastructure. Both of these alliances have understandably faced strong criticism and condemnation from Washington. In response to the significant revelation about the exchange of weapons between these two nations, American spokesperson John Kirby expressed concern. He emphasized that the expanding military collaboration between North Korea and Russia, including potential technology transfers, undermines regional stability and the global non-proliferation regime. Jack Watling, a senior research fellow at RUSI, added that this exchange could severely impact the course of the war in Ukraine, given North Korea's substantial stockpile of ammunition. In exchange for the support, RUSI and the USA think that North Korea wants military help from Russia. This includes fighter aircraft, surface-to-air missiles, armored vehicles, ballistic missile production equipment, and more advanced technologies. Since the early days of the Ukraine war, President Biden's administration has suspected that North Korea might be giving weapons to Russia. These suspicions grew stronger last year when it became clear that Moscow was low on advanced weaponry and using a lot of shells, turning the war into mostly an artillery-focused conflict. Similarly, the USA and its allies have been looking worldwide for extra ammunition for Ukraine. This search includes the 155mm shells used by the US and shells of various sizes for old Soviet-era artillery still being used by Ukraine. North Korea supplying weapons to Russia might lead to reigniting a war that the United States have worked so hard to put an end to, increasing the tensions between the nations. Let us have a look at North Korea's position in the world of weaponry, and if Ukraine should be really worried about the agreement between North Korea and Russia. Kim Jong-un has used a large part of his country's money on the military, reaching up to 26% of the nation's total money in 2017. This was more than what any other country spent on the military that year. Nowadays, aerial and underwater drones are getting a lot of attention, and North Korea is investing in them. Drones are favored because they don't put many people at risk, and they can hit targets very accurately. Many powerful countries are focusing on drones, and North Korea is doing the same by allocating a significant part of its budget to them. Let's take a look at Hwasong-8, North Korea's hypersonic missile. Hwasong-8 is known to be one of the deadliest hypersonic missiles, and it has been deployed to Russia. The missile is said to be built from either a shortened Hwasong-14 first stage or a Hwasong-12. Observations of the distance between the verniers and the main chamber suggest it's likely based on the Hwasong-14, as it has a slightly longer gap between them. Compared to the original Hwasong-14, the fuel tanks of the main stage would have been shortened by around a quarter. The hypersonic vehicle is positioned on top of the missile and has a typical shape seen in other vehicles of its kind, like the DF-ZF, with fins for controlling its flight. However, because there is no release data on the missile's trajectory, it's challenging to determine the path of the re-entry vehicle. The missile probably didn't fly over Japan in a flat trajectory, and a lofted trajectory isn't suitable for testing such vehicles, as the glide vehicle would then re-enter at a near vertical angle. Regardless, the missile is an important demonstration of missile technology. It marked the 6th consecutive successful flight of the Pyeongtaesan rocket motor, also used by the Hwasong-12, 14, and 15. The missile consists of other advanced technologies, such as amplification of fuel, where fuel can be loaded into the missile months or years before a launch, reducing the preparation time. However, the impact of amplification may have been overstated, and it's likely that storable liquid fuel or membranes to seal off the propellant tank until launch are used. The Joint Chief of Staff mentions that the missile could be intercepted if it flies at a speed of Mach 3. However, if it reaches hypersonic speeds, it could reach the southern regions of South Korea in about a minute, compared to 5 or 6 for a Scud missile. This short time might be too brief to alert missile defenses. The missile shown at the Defense Exhibition in October 2021 had some noticeable differences compared to the one launched in September. In the exhibition, the warhead was probably mounted on a Hwasong-12, and the missile was seen on a MAZ-547, also used by the Hwasong-12. The launch of the missile also had a political purpose. It demonstrated the government's ability to enhance its deterrence, showcasing achievements and potentially gaining legitimacy and prestige during a time when there is much focus on hypersonic missiles. The launch attracted international attention, being seen as joining a race headed by major military powers to deploy the advanced weapon systems, according to Reuters. However, most ballistic missiles of North Korea already re-entered at hypersonic speeds, but this still improves the chances of the warhead's survival, even though these re-entry vehicles are more expensive than traditional ones and are unlikely to make up more than a small part of its missile force. This also seems to be part of a growing arms race in Korea, with this missile showcasing technological prowess over South Korea. North Korea also seems determined to create one of the most advanced fleets of drones capable of carrying nuclear weapons, and their latest creation, HALE, provides strong evidence of this effort. HALE is an underwater drone, and since it's a new weapon, people outside North Korea don't fully understand it yet. Experts have made their best guesses by comparing it to a similar Russian weapon called Poseidon. Like Poseidon, the new North Korean drone has a pump jet propulsor at the back and a set of control surfaces that can fold, similar to a cross. But, unlike Poseidon, which uses nuclear power for both propulsion and its warhead, the North Korean drone probably relies on batteries for power. There is no proof that North Korea is working on the specific nuclear technologies needed for a small nuclear reactor to power such a vehicle. This makes sense since using nuclear power is likely not a top priority for North Korea. North Korea recently sent a shipment to Russia on October 14. The ship, which is referred to as Angra, is owned by a Russian company named M-Leasing. This company has been sanctioned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine for transporting weapons and military equipment on behalf of the Russian government. M-Leasing is managed by another controversial shipping company called Marine Trans Shipping, which is also sanctioned for moving weapons for the Russian government. Now, regarding the ship called Mariah, registration documents indicate that a company called JSC Sofracht is associated with it. In 2019, the United States identified Sofracht as a company involved in a sanctions evasion conspiracy to support Russian forces in Syria, aiding the regime of Bashar al-Assad. North Korea is not the first state that Russia has sought assistance from during its ongoing conflict with Ukraine, and it may not be the last. Since 2022, Moscow has heavily relied on explosive drones made in Iran, using them in Ukrainian cities, against civilians, and the country's infrastructure for over a year. Both of these partnerships have unsurprisingly faced sharp criticism and condemnation from Washington. In response to the announcement about this arms trade, American spokesman John Kirby said that the expanding military partnership between the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and Russia, including any technology transfers from Russia to the DPRK, undermines regional stability and the global non-proliferation regime. Jack Watling, a senior research fellow for land warfare at RUSI, also mentioned that this exchange would likely have a severe impact on the course of the war in Ukraine because of the existing stockpile of ammunition by North Korea. As a response to Russia's continuous violations of the sanctions, the United States aims to end the war as soon as possible and has already imposed sanctions on individuals involved in providing weapons to Russians. According to Kirby, the United States will enforce these sanctions as needed and may impose new sanctions against anyone supporting Russia's ongoing war with Ukraine. Thanks for watching. While you're still here, click on the video appearing on your screen to watch another of our interesting videos. See you there.